My beloved child, listen carefully. Because this moment is not random. You did not arrive here by accident. Something unseen paused your scrolling finger. Something greater slowed time just enough to bring you into this exact second. And before you think this is just another voice, understand this. Very few hear this call clearly. Even fewer stay until the end. But those who do, their inner world never remains the same again. You have been asking questions silently. Questions you never spoke aloud. Why your heart feels heavy even when you try to be kind. Why forgiveness feels harder than pain itself. Why you keep giving love yet return with wounds. And right now, something is about to be revealed that will change how you see forgiveness forever. Not as weakness. Not as surrender. But as a hidden power most people die without ever touching. Stay with me. Because what comes next is meant only for those strong enough to hear truth without turning away. There is a reason your soul feels tired. It is not because you are weak. It is because you have been carrying weights that were never meant to live inside you. Every hurt you replayed. Every betrayal you swallowed silently. Every moment you smiled while bleeding inside. Each one became a stone in your spirit. And you wondered why peace feels distant even when life looks fine from the outside. Here is the revelation few understand. Pain that is not released becomes a prison. And unforgiveness is not justice. It is a silent agreement to stay chained to the very wound that hurt you. This is not about excusing what was done. This is about freeing who you are becoming. Because every time you refuse to forgive, you give your past permission to control your future. And here is the shock. The one who hurt you moved on. But the pain stayed with you. Not because it belongs there. But because you have not yet been shown the power hidden inside forgiveness. A power that does not come from them. It comes from you becoming more than the pain tried to make you. Now hear this slowly. Forgiveness is not something you give when the other person deserves it. Forgiveness is something you activate when you decide your soul deserves peace. This is where most people misunderstand everything. They think forgiveness means lowering yourself. But the truth is the opposite. Forgiveness raises you above the reach of what tried to break you. It is an act of authority. A declaration that says, I will not let bitterness shape my character. I will not let anger decide my destiny. I choose to become larger than the moment that tried to define me. And here is the once-in-a-lifetime truth. When you forgive, you do not lose power. You reclaim it. You take back the energy that was trapped in resentment. You take back the focus stolen by replaying the past. You take back the light that was dimmed by holding on to darkness. This is why the strongest souls are not those who strike back. They are those who rise above. Quietly. Firmly. Unshaken. But there is something deeper you must understand. Forgiveness is not a single decision. It is a transformation. And transformation always feels uncomfortable at first. Because it asks you to release an identity built around hurt. It asks you to let go of the story where pain was your proof. And that is scary. Because pain becomes familiar. It becomes a shield. It becomes a reason. But what if I tell you this? The version of you that survives is not the same version meant to thrive. And forgiveness is the bridge between those two selves. When you forgive, you are not saying what happened was right. You are saying it will not have the final word. You are choosing growth over grievance. Light over weight. Purpose over poison. And here is the surprising part. When you forgive, something shifts not just inside you, but around you. People feel it. Opportunities respond to it. Peace begins to recognize you again. Because your heart is no longer locked in yesterday. So now, pause inside yourself. Feel the resistance. That tightness when you think of the one who hurt you. That voice that says they do not deserve forgiveness. And listen closely. Forgiveness is not about them deserving it. It is about you no longer suffering for something you did not choose. This is the moment where power is offered. Quietly. Gently. Without force. You are being invited to become more like the highest version of love. Not soft. Not naive. But unbreakable. The kind of strength that does not need revenge to feel whole. The kind of courage that releases the past without denying it. This is only the beginning. Because what you are about to learn next will reveal how forgiveness reshapes destiny itself. And why those who master it walk through life untouched by the storms that destroy others. Stay ready. Because what comes after this changes everything. Before the world taught you how to harden your heart, there was a version of you that trusted easily, loved deeply, and believed goodness would always be met with goodness. That version is not gone. It is waiting. Waiting behind layers of disappointment, guarded thoughts, and silent vows you made after being hurt. And here is something most people never realize. Every time you say you have moved on but still feel anger when you remember, a part of you is still standing in that old moment, hoping it would end differently. This is where the real battle lives. Not outside. Inside. Because time does not heal wounds. Awareness does. And forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is understanding that you cannot rewrite the past, but you can reclaim the future. Right now, you are standing at a doorway most people walk past without entering. On one side is the familiar weight of resentment. On the other side is a freedom that feels unfamiliar, almost suspicious. And that is why it feels risky. Because healing asks you to step into a version of life you have never lived before. Here is the truth that may surprise you. Holding on to anger feels powerful, but it quietly drains you. It consumes your attention, shapes your reactions, and colors your expectations. You begin to see threats where there are none. You begin to protect yourself from pain that already happened. And without realizing it, you start punishing new moments for old wounds. This is how unforgiveness spreads. It does not stay focused on one person or one event. It leaks into relationships, decisions, and even dreams. You become cautious where you once were curious. Closed where you once were open. And the tragedy is not that someone hurt you. The tragedy is letting that hurt decide who you become. Forgiveness interrupts this pattern. It breaks the cycle. It says the pain stops here. It says the past does not get to vote on your future anymore. And this decision, this inner shift, is what separates those who merely survive from those who truly live. Now understand this carefully. Forgiveness does not arrive as a sudden emotional relief. It often begins as a quiet, uncomfortable choice. A choice to stop rehearsing what you would say if you ever got the chance. A choice to stop imagining different endings. A choice to release the hope that the past could somehow change. And this is hard. Because the mind loves familiar pain more than unfamiliar peace. Familiar pain feels controllable. You know its shape. You know its voice. Peace, on the other hand, requires trust. Trust that letting go will not erase you. Trust that you will not lose yourself without the armor you built. But here is the revelation that changes everything. Forgiveness does not make you vulnerable. It makes you whole. When you forgive, you are not opening yourself to harm. You are closing the door on what already harmed you. You are choosing alignment over attachment. Growth over grievance. Strength over spite. There is a deeper layer to this transformation. When you forgive, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of the story and start seeing yourself as the author of the next chapter. This is where power truly returns. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that needs validation. But the quiet authority of someone who knows who they are beyond what happened to them. This kind of power changes how you walk into rooms. How you speak. How you love. People may not know what shifted, but they will feel it. Because a heart that has forgiven carries a different frequency. It is lighter. Clearer. Unburdened. And this clarity brings discernment. You no longer tolerate what drains you. You no longer chase what diminishes you. You no longer confuse intensity with connection. Forgiveness sharpens your vision. It teaches you the difference between attachment and love. Between familiarity and safety. Between longing and truth. So listen closely to this final truth of this moment. Forgiveness is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of alignment. Alignment with peace. Alignment with wisdom. Alignment with the version of you that does not need pain to feel deep or struggle to feel strong. You are not being asked to rush this process. You are being invited to honor it. Step by step. Layer by layer. Release by release. Because what waits on the other side is not emptiness. It is space. Space for joy to return without fear. Space for love to arrive without suspicion. Space for purpose to unfold without resistance. And what is coming next will show you how this inner shift begins to reshape everything you attract, everything you allow, and everything you become. Stay present. Because the most powerful transformation has not yet been spoken. There is a moment that arrives quietly, often unnoticed, when the heart realizes it is ready to release what the mind kept guarding for so long. This moment does not come with noise or drama. It comes as a soft inner knowing. A realization that carrying pain no longer proves strength. It only proves endurance. And endurance alone was never your destiny. You were not created merely to withstand life. You were created to expand within it. This is where forgiveness deepens into something sacred. Not an action. Not a statement. But a shift in identity. You stop defining yourself by what was taken from you and begin recognizing what can no longer be taken at all. Your peace. Your clarity. Your ability to love without fear. This is the threshold most people sense but never cross. Because crossing it requires letting go of the last excuse to stay the same. What few understand is that forgiveness rewires the way you experience reality. When resentment fades, perception sharpens. You begin to notice how often your reactions were echoes of old pain rather than responses to the present moment. You realize how many decisions were shaped by avoidance rather than intention. And this awareness is not meant to shame you. It is meant to free you. Because once you see the pattern, you are no longer trapped inside it. Forgiveness clears emotional noise. It removes the static that kept you stuck in cycles of mistrust and overprotection. Suddenly, you are able to hear your intuition again. That quiet guidance that was always there but drowned out by anger and disappointment. And when intuition returns, direction follows. Life begins to feel less confusing, not because everything is easy, but because you are no longer fighting yourself. There is also a hidden courage in forgiveness that most people never talk about. It is the courage to be soft without being weak. To be open without being unguarded. To be kind without abandoning discernment. Forgiveness teaches you that boundaries and compassion can exist together. That you can release bitterness without reopening doors that should remain closed. This is maturity. This is wisdom earned through experience, not innocence. And here is the powerful truth. When you forgive from this place, you are no longer reacting from wounds. You are acting from clarity. You do not need closure from others because you have given it to yourself. You do not need apologies to move forward because your freedom is no longer dependent on someone else's awareness. This is where inner authority is born. At this stage, something remarkable begins to happen. Your emotional energy stops leaking into the past and starts fueling the present. You feel more grounded. More steady. Less easily shaken. Situations that once triggered you now pass through without leaving a mark. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped attaching your worth to outcomes you cannot control. Forgiveness anchors you in self-respect. It reminds you that your value was never reduced by how others treated you. And when this truth settles in, comparison loses its grip. Validation loses its urgency. You begin to move at your own pace, guided by alignment rather than urgency. This inner stability becomes visible. Others may not know your story, but they will sense your strength. Now receive this final insight of this part. Forgiveness does not erase memory. It transforms meaning. The past remains, but it no longer defines direction. It becomes a teacher rather than a jailer. A chapter rather than the whole book. And this transformation prepares you for what comes next. Because the next phase is not just about healing. It is about elevation. About stepping into a version of yourself that operates from wisdom instead of wounds. From presence instead of pain. What is unfolding is larger than relief. It is alignment with a higher way of being. Stay here. Because what follows will reveal how this inner shift begins to shape destiny in ways you never imagined. There comes a season when silence begins to speak louder than noise, when the soul realizes that reacting less is not weakness but wisdom forming. In this season, you start noticing how peace feels unfamiliar yet deeply right. You no longer rush to prove your pain or explain your boundaries. Something inside you has settled. This is the evidence that forgiveness is no longer an idea. It has become a state of being. You are not trying to be calm. You are calm. You are not forcing release. You have released. And this is where a powerful shift occurs. Life stops feeling like a battlefield and starts feeling like a path. Challenges still appear, but they no longer feel personal. They feel purposeful. As if each moment is asking not how much you can endure, but how clearly you can see. This clarity is rare. And it only comes to those who stopped feeding the past and started listening to the present. With this clarity, your perception of people begins to change. You no longer see others only through the lens of what they did to you. You begin to see them through the lens of who you are becoming. This does not mean you excuse behavior. It means you stop letting behavior define your inner state. You understand something profound now. Everyone acts from their level of awareness. And awareness is not equal across all souls. This understanding does not make you superior. It makes you free. Free from the need to personalize everything. Free from carrying emotional weight that was never yours. And here is the surprising revelation. When you stop internalizing what others project, your energy returns to you. Fully. Cleanly. You become less reactive and more responsive. Less defensive and more discerning. This is emotional mastery. And it is built quietly, choice by choice. As forgiveness deepens, your relationship with time also transforms. You stop rushing healing. You stop fearing pauses. You trust the unfolding. This trust is not blind. It is earned. Earned through the realization that every delay taught you something. Every loss refined you. Every disappointment redirected you. Forgiveness allows you to see the hidden order beneath apparent chaos. You begin to sense that nothing was wasted. Not even the pain. Especially not the pain. Because it shaped discernment. It strengthened boundaries. It sharpened intuition. And now, instead of asking why something happened, you ask what it prepared you for. This question alone changes everything. It shifts you from resistance into readiness. From regret into responsibility for your next step. There is also a quiet confidence that emerges here. A confidence that does not need attention or approval. You no longer announce your growth. You embody it. You do not argue your worth. You live it. Forgiveness stabilizes your inner world so deeply that external validation loses its control. Compliments feel pleasant but unnecessary. Criticism feels informative but powerless. You become anchored in self-knowledge. And from this anchor, your decisions become cleaner. You say yes with intention. You say no without guilt. You walk away without drama. You stay without fear. This balance is not learned from books. It is earned through release. Through choosing peace repeatedly until peace chooses you back. Take this truth with you into the next moment. Forgiveness is not the closing of a chapter. It is the elevation of the entire story. It lifts you out of survival mode and places you into authorship. You are no longer reacting to life. You are responding with purpose. And what is approaching now is not just inner stability. It is alignment with something greater. A sense of direction that feels calm, clear, and unforced. The next phase will reveal how this alignment begins to influence what you attract, what you repel, and what finally finds you when you are ready. Stay present. Because the journey is no longer about healing wounds. It is about stepping fully into who you were always meant to be. There is a sacred stillness that appears once the noise of resentment fades. In this stillness, you begin to notice how life responds differently to you. Doors that once felt heavy begin to open without force. Conversations flow with ease. Decisions feel less urgent and more aligned. This is not coincidence. This is coherence. Forgiveness has synchronized your inner world with a higher order. When your heart is no longer divided between past and present, your energy becomes whole. And wholeness is magnetic. You are no longer chasing outcomes. You are attracting experiences that match your clarity. This is the quiet miracle most people miss. Life does not respond to what you want. It responds to who you are being. And forgiveness reshapes who you are being at the deepest level. As this alignment strengthens, you start recognizing patterns that once controlled you. Repeated disappointments. Familiar disappointments. Cycles that look different on the surface but felt the same inside. Forgiveness breaks these loops. Not by changing others, but by changing your tolerance for what no longer resonates. You stop confusing attachment with destiny. You stop calling lessons losses. And this awareness protects you. It refines your choices. You no longer stay where your spirit feels small. You no longer explain your worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. This is not bitterness. This is self-respect awakened. Forgiveness teaches you the difference between holding on and honoring yourself. And once this difference is understood, you cannot unsee it. Another powerful shift occurs here. Your relationship with trust evolves. You no longer give it blindly, nor do you withhold it out of fear. You offer it gradually, guided by observation rather than hope. This balanced trust creates stability. You are no longer disappointed by unrealistic expectations because you are no longer projecting unhealed needs onto others. Forgiveness healed the place that once begged for validation. And because that place is healed, you approach connections with completeness rather than hunger. This changes everything. Love feels lighter. Boundaries feel natural. Solitude feels nourishing rather than lonely. You realize that peace is not the absence of people. It is the absence of inner conflict. Now receive this final revelation of this part. Forgiveness does not make life perfect. It makes it honest. Honest about what aligns and what does not. Honest about what deserves your energy and what does not. And honesty is powerful. It removes confusion. It removes self-betrayal. It brings you into direct relationship with your values. From this place, your path becomes clearer. Not because every step is visible, but because you trust the ground beneath you. You trust yourself. And this self-trust is the foundation of courage. The courage to move forward without resentment. The courage to love without fear. The courage to release without regret. What comes next will show you how this courage reshapes your future in ways that feel both grounded and extraordinary. Stay open. Because the unfolding has only just begun. There is a point in this journey where courage stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like truth. You no longer wake up bracing yourself against the world. You wake up grounded within yourself. This is the reward of forgiveness fully integrated. Fear loses its volume. Doubt loses its authority. You are not trying to be brave. You simply are. Because courage rooted in peace does not shout. It stands. And from this inner stability, your choices become deliberate rather than reactive. You no longer rush into what feels familiar. You step toward what feels right. This distinction changes the entire direction of a life. And it happens quietly, without applause, the moment you stop letting old pain advise new decisions. With this courage comes faith. Not blind belief, but earned trust in the unfolding of your path. You begin to sense that you are being guided, not pushed. Supported, not tested endlessly. Forgiveness clears the static that once blocked this awareness. When resentment fades, intuition strengthens. You feel nudges instead of pressure. Clarity instead of confusion. This is faith in motion. Faith that does not deny challenges but knows they are not punishments. Faith that understands growth often arrives disguised as discomfort. And because of this faith, you stop asking for signs to feel safe. You feel safe enough to move without them. This is a rare state. And it is built on the foundation of release. Another shift unfolds here. Your relationship with yourself deepens. You speak to yourself with respect rather than criticism. You listen to your needs without judgment. You rest without guilt. Forgiveness taught you how much harm comes from holding things too tightly, including expectations of yourself. So now you allow space for imperfection. You understand that becoming more does not require being less human. This compassion toward yourself expands outward naturally. You become patient without forcing it. Kind without effort. Present without distraction. And this presence becomes your greatest strength. People feel seen around you. Situations soften. Because a grounded heart influences everything it touches. Hold this truth as you move forward. Courage and faith are not separate qualities. They are two expressions of inner alignment. Courage is the willingness to step forward. Faith is the confidence that you will be supported when you do. Forgiveness made room for both. It cleared what was heavy so what was essential could rise. And now, as this part closes, understand this. You are no longer defined by what hurt you. You are defined by how you healed. What awaits next is not a test of endurance. It is an invitation to live from this healed place fully. To embody strength without struggle. To move with trust instead of tension. Stay present. Because the final revelation will bring everything together in a way that feels both simple and profound.